Alright, let's get started here. Where did we leave off? I think just fucking around, right? Let's see if Scav Girl does salvaging any better than the other folk. We can, I mean, actually, weirdly enough, as long as we're not the one doing the killing, it might work. I don't think the codexes weigh a ton. So just like, if our only goal is to get in, get some codexes and get out, this might work. Let's take more space. Can carry 2 mags basically, or 3, actually 3 mags, including the one we actually have natively. We'll give it a try. Give it the old try. I actually don't know how much money I have right now. I probably have plenty.
It's always the same up here.
God, 840 HP is not great. Alright, we got 1 mech. Do we have 2 mech? We have half the equation. Are they worshipping the fucking... Are the Rakavas worshipping the goddamn mechs? I mean, fair.
Bad luck today.
Got a little pot shot. No one look at anything there. Alright. If Racking is here, it works too. Oh god, snipers. We might get one-shot by snipers. Which is absolutely terrifying. Alright, this might not be a great opportunity for codexes here. Actually, that's a lot of fucking T90s. This might work out, actually. This might actually work. It might take a respawn or two for them to actually die, but the T90s do respawn over time. Come on, T90s, do your job. Well, that's not great. They should eventually die. No, hold still, stay there. I need you to stay there so you can actually die to T90s. They've already respawned though, look at that. Perfect. Hey Hanzo, how's it going? Come on T90s, do your job, come on. Oh, you just got hit by a fucking... That was a tank shell. Why don't the tanks shoot for center mass? Why do they go for the legs? I mean, it actually does make sense to go for the legs, I guess. Alright, let's run it back, and then hopefully not get murdered by a T90. RPK. Hey, Dust, how's it going? Need to buy some more drills. While we're here, though, how are we on money? 40k, but how much do we have in assets? Do we have any codexes and assets right now? Oh, I have level 3, that's nice. I didn't even know that. We don't have, I think, anything worth a lot of money, but we got plenty of money in our inventory if we need to liquidate stuff. They will do sync kills now, but it basically has to be Yoruska versus Europa. Otherwise, they'll just kiss forever. And even when they're like, that's those two, it takes a while. They generally just end up kissing for a bit, and then they will eventually kill each other via sync kill. It does take a second, though. I think the Europa versus Yoruska, you'll hear a sound effect. I don't think the Yoruska versus Europa one has a sound effect yet. But they play a pretty like on the nose audio cue. Like say, hey, look at this. When the Europa goes after the Yoruska medium mech. Oh, do we have neither side right now? I mean, we could maybe have Rat King, perhaps. Not that I've seen. Rat King is a Europa medium mech by trade, basically, but I don't think he has a sync kill yet, either for or against. I think it's literally just, there's one for Europa, and there's one for Yoruska, and that's literally it. For now, that is. Alright, do we have Rat King? Otherwise, we might just leave. Well, here for codexes. Hey, Snowman, how's it going? Yeah, no Rat King. Sad days. Lots of tanks, though. Which don't really have valuable loot at all. Alright, let's skedaddle. Where are you? Just a piece of debris? Oh, it's my stuff. Never mind. Yeah, that can be said for most maps, really. Lewis. Hey, Casper. No, that's the problem with most maps, right? It's literally usually just movement around the map, with very little depth in regards to like looting and stuff, but we'll see how they address it, if they address it at all. Fucking drones. But no, Mesa, like, I mean, once again, like the best map in my opinion is Frozen Swamp, and it's not even close. Like, Mesa is a distant second, but, like, Frozen Swamp is far and above the best map they have made so far. For gameplay purposes. Like, naturally, there are probably prettier maps, like, Action Mesa Eclipse is a very pretty map, but, like, in regards to, like, actually, like, gameplay and functionality and actually, like, having areas to do things in, it's Frozen Swamp. Yeah, they also, there was if you played at the initial release of the stamina patch, there was a bug with how they did weight calculation that they had to fix.
A day of close calls.
Essentially, if you were using larger rigs than the default rig, for every extra slot you had, it was multiplying weight by that number. So say, for example, the equipment runner because it had 4 container slots, not the large slots, it was just container slots. It was multiplying anything's weight by 4, which means you're essentially like skipping past the low to medium to like high medium levels of stamina drain and just going straight to the top if you picked up anything really. And they have fixed that, thankfully. But it was absolutely a brutal bug, and it definitely did, I think, taint the initial stamina response basically. Like, it's really hard to like say like are these like takes on stamina genuine? Come on, Numlock. There we go. When it's so tainted early on by that bug. And like, I will like admit that stamina right now to me is kind of a nothing burger. Like, it's one of those things, right, where it's so hard to balance with the current way they've done it that it's it's always gonna feel either draconian or like forgettable, right? I think they have an impossible task on their hands balancing the current stamina system. I do not think they will ever be able to find the exact balance where people will care and also have it feel like stamina exists. All right, we have half the equation. All right, we have half. We're missing the other half, but oh well. I'm sure oceans are still a thing. I mean, we don't know, but like, if oceans didn't exist, we'd be having a lot bigger problems in nuclear winter. So they probably, like, some of them might have dried up, like, here and there, like smaller oceans and like seas and shit like that, or like have that evaporated a bit maybe, but by and large they still need to exist. Oh, maybe, like, the only thing, like, that's the problem though too, right, is like, let's say you're developing this like tool, like the stamina tool, and it's like a 10% increase in stamina. So like, if you could only sprint for 10 seconds, right? Congratulations, you got in 1 more second of sprint. It's very hard to feel that as a player unless you're like exactly measuring it. So like, when you have a system like that's easy come, easy go, the changes, anything you do to it, like with buff-wise in regards to equipment, have to be so outlandishly strong for them to be noticed. And that doesn't mean they're not worth doing, but like, if you're trying to have the player actually feel like something has an impact, I would say that it might have issues doing that. Do we have enough Merkavas to take out these things? I don't think so. Let's see, actually, we have Merkava coming in. Yeah, it would probably take forever for these guys to actually die. I feel like they have the land ships because there's vast areas of no man's land that are ripe for just attacking people in. So let's say, for like, the one I use in my video, Snowman, is like, hey, the west coast of America is clearly at war. The east coast is probably still in a state of like relative peace. But that creates this giant kind of gray zone between the active war front and, like, you know, Central America, not Central, sorry, Middle America, like the you know, not Central America as in Mexico, but Central America as in like the Great Plains. So like, there might be this giant expanse of like gray zone where it's technically under Europa control, but not really. So like those land ships, those land titans, right, are a way of crossing this great expanse of like desolate ruin without getting picked apart by attrition. So I imagine cyborgs are like, I imagine Eurasians are perfectly fine with dropping cyborgs behind enemy lines to be a nuisance, right? And so a land ship is a great way of actually helping protect the infantry getting across, you know, the land from that. Yeah, it's a big armored supply truck, and like, I'm pretty sure this might not be the case because they have shown that they have like scaling issues in the game. So I'm hesitant to say that that's the appropriate scale or size of the Titan, just because they do tend to make things kind of small by accident or on purpose. I don't know if it's either or, But at the current scale of those Titans, they're kind of like expendable landing craft. They don't really have the girth to them to actually hold lots of supplies, considering they have a giant central hangar bay. And we haven't really seen any places where people can sleep or like eat or do stuff. Like there's no crew quarters at all in those things that we've seen, right? So they literally do just seem like landing craft, like expendable landing craft. Phillips for sure, yeah. Like, but that's another reason to have Titans, right? Giant tracked vehicles to help you go through the passes of that. You might have tunnels too for underground areas, but like, and like I imagine, considering Europa like had control of it beforehand, right? There was probably like tunnels or ways through, but like I imagine that's another reason for the tracked vehicles too, right? Is because you have to do these giant land moving like operations across the world or across the thing. But I see the Titans as basically landing craft almost. Hey, Telmo. Joaquim or Shek, they've taken down the demo and they alluded to the next patch being big, making the demo obsolete. So read into that how you want. The anniversary, I think, is on the 24th, right? But like the biggest thing to do is, right, is like we're still on the monthly cadence train. So I would expect a patch next week. I don't know when next week, but like if they're gonna keep up the whole monthly cadence, it would be next week. All right, let's give this one more chance to actually give us some medium X to fucking salvage. Yeah, I don't know any more than you, but like, I would expect next week. What day, I have no idea. Personally, I would prefer later in the week because I can stream it that easily. I can stream it really easily then, but we'll see. It's always a bit sketch when they do early week patches, and I'm just like, oh, I can't do anything. All right, we have half the equation. Why would they do wipes? Like, I can see them doing wipes if they need to, but like, they don't have to do wipes. There's literally no reason to. You are certainly free to wipe your own account if you want to. I mean, you can go inside the Titans. There's really just not that much room. Like, sure, they look big, but like when you account for everything on them, there's really not much room. I personally, Ludrath, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't think that a patch that touches on leveling and prestige would really cause the demo to get taken down. Because sure, while the gameplay experience changes with that, it doesn't fundamentally change. At least personally, right? I wouldn't see the parallel between those two. And we can really like let's get both sides of the equation here. We just need do 290s here to keep these. We'll go inside the Titan, though that will probably cause a despawn. But like, I'll show you, there's really just not that much room. Yeah, the thing about the Fat Boy though is the Fat Boy was like the entire central area was a fab. It wasn't a troop carrier as much as more of it was a mobile factory, right? This is like very clearly a troop carrier in some capacity, or like a hangar carrier rather. Like, there's not really a lot of room on this fucking thing for a lot of stuff, really. And once again, that could just be a scaling thing. Like maybe it's supposed to be bigger than it actually looks, or actually is in game. But like, okay, so we have the giant tracks on this side, right? and the giant tracks on this side. So the big thing is like the 2 sets of giant tracks on each side really help it make sure it doesn't get dug into sand and shit like that, and helps it traverse shit terrain. It loses a lot of its ground real estate for fucking tracks. And granted too, we don't even know where its power plant is either, right? If it even... But like, outside of its 2 large track bays, which go all the way back to the back of the, you know, like it is... These are both large tracks that just go all the way back, right? And then you have the central hangar here that's divided into 2 parts, right? And like, this hangar isn't really that big. It's not small, but it's not big either, right? There is a backside here, but like, if you double this up, right? Like you have 2, maybe like 1.5, like 1.5 of these, right? Or 2.5 of these, right? It's really not all that much space. Like you can maybe store a couple medium mechs in here, quite a few exos, quite a few like, you know, Merkavas. But like, then you have to start thinking about crew quarters and stuff like that. Especially considering they have this giant missile bay up here that just has a lot of dead space. Like, there is a reason why ships usually feel incredibly claustrophobic, is because they need to use the space efficiently. And this just has lots of dead space in it, right? In regards to like just things not being used. It's just a giant missile bay with exposed... I guess these silos are probably silos, so that's perfectly fine, but like, it's an exposed missile bay, basically. So like, let me get up to the top here. And you can see like there's no extra corridors. There's really not that much space in here for really anything. Stop running. Yeah, there's not a lot of bulkheads, not a lot of space, and then you have to take into the equation too that like there's a ton of guns on this thing, like a shit ton of guns that would all need to have a way of powering them, if not mechanical. God, that'd be a fucking not mechanical, and you have to store the ammo too. Like, and then you have this like faux sort of like command center up here that seems more like symbolic and also scaled inappropriately. Like if we want to take in a sense that maybe this Titan's not to scale and it's like only like 75% scale, then yeah, maybe this bridge makes a lot more sense, right? But it is an exposed bridge, which feels kind of wacky. It feels AI produced, right? So this feels like a landing vessel more than like an actual carrier. Like this is, congratulations, you're on the bridge. Because where else would the fucking bridge be here? But like, yeah, like if you take into account all of the guns, all of the dead space in the missile bay, the hangars being not that big, it's not really like a forced projection sort of thing, like a carrier. It's literally a landing craft. At like in its current capacity, it feels like a landing craft that has like a one-use purpose. It gets 1 salvo of ammunition, right? Or like, you know, let's say like 60 rounds per gun, or like depending on the gun size, it might have more or less than that. And then like it crosses, it's supposed to get troops from point A to point B, and once it does that, it's abandoned, right? It's probably why you see so many abandoned Titans across the maps. Like, for example, in Scorched Enclave, there's like 3 or 4 Titans in the distance that are all abandoned. Because outside, like, they don't have enough supplies to keep them being useful after a certain point, right? They run out of ammo, they run out of fuel, they run out of supplies themselves. No, I would consider them more logistical vessels. They're not really, like, the invasion's the wrong term. They're a way of getting troops from point A to point B safely, and once the troops are there, we don't need it anymore, or rather, we don't need to use it anymore, really. It's just literally a way of getting from point A to point B. Like, if you have, like, let's say, for example, you're Europa, right? You have the Great Plains, which are basically fucking desolated at this point and full of cyborgs, like backline cyborgs. You have the West Coast actual big fights, and then you have like the East Coast, you know, that's where your population centers are, right? You recruit people from the East Coast, you load them on these ships and send them across the fucking country, and they get to the West Coast and they fight and they die, and then so on and so forth. You can say it's a waste though too, but it could like literally be on purpose though, right? Like, one, you have to keep in mind that the actual scale of production in this setting is insanely large. Like, you can't comprehend it really. they're making billions of things a day, if not trillions. Like, probably like billions of rounds of ammunition, if not close to trillions rounds of ammunition every day, right? There might be reclamation units, but like, I mean, there are salvage units, right? But like, it's more in the sense that, there's different ways you can, like, when you get to, I will say, when you get to a game like this, for example, that might have not really thought out its lore concretely, or at least they haven't, even if they know their lore internally, right, they haven't put it in stone yet. You kind of just have to view things as they are and kind of rationalize them any way you can. And it's kind of why I have issues with the whole scaling thing, is that I have troubles like finding a rationale for that, right? I can make sense of Titans being like these disposable, like, you know, land ships that are supposed to get troops from point A to point B. I can like lore explain that in my head. It can logically make sense with certain things in my head. But when you have like two vastly differently sized tanks like 30 feet from each other, I have a lot of trouble rationalizing that. Like, I guess you could have mini tanks, but if they're gonna go through the whole thing of having differently sized tanks, and one being crew served and one being one-man tanks, like, I would like to see that actually written in stone, I feel like. Yeah, the snowmen, the bombers. The Yoruska bombers. That's how they drop cyborgs. The actual ways they get other troops across the world, we don't know. But like the main thing for cyborgs, right, is sending them across the world, is via bomber. Actually, let's go off the RPK. Yeah, I mean, there's probably like bigger logistical vessels too, we just haven't seen yet. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty well known, Ludroth, right? That's like almost canonical, right? If it's not literally set, like it's basically set in stone, right? Like you can see them cooperating in game. We're going to Frozen Swamps. We don't need these. All right.
Wake up, rinse and repeat. Stay alive.
Yeah, like that was kind of one thing I was hoping with the reinforcement update, was actually being able to see like some logistical vehicles. That's kind of what that's kind of why I'm like I prefer the dev blogs over the Q&As. It's because the way they talked about the reinforcement update definitely is not the like the way they talked about it put a picture in my head that wasn't what it eventually ended up being. Really, all the reinforcement update turned out to be was they stopped the pop-in spawns and then they added respawn mechanics to drones. And I'm sure it was more than that too, but like they were hyping it up a bit, I feel, in the very, very early Q&As. What I was truly hoping for was actually seeing like APCs or helicopters or logistical vehicles that their only purpose was carrying troops or delivering troops to the field, right? To like lore justify as opposed to having things spawn at all in maps, I was hoping that like the way it would work is that when, you know, troops got low on a battlefield, like helicopters or like APCs would come in and drop off more troops to fight, and then just ferry troops to the battlefield. No, I don't think that's a very controversial opinion, Dark. I think most people agree with you that they don't like the unkillables. It's honestly why I don't bother with the towers anymore. I don't bother doing the objectives on maps anymore, because I just don't really want to deal with the shield officer or opals. Especially considering too, they just don't feel like they have a purpose. Hey, maybe Tama. I mean, they you know, Mother Courage is a logistical unit, right? They're salvage operations. That's why you only see them on night shifts. But in regards to difficulty, Dark, yeah, I mean, that's just, it is what it is. Oh god, no.
I think they spotted us.
Like, it's lots of different things. I would say the biggest thing, Dark, is that I would say the biggest hurdle for new players is understanding that at its heart, this isn't a stealth game currently. So if you approach it from a stealth perspective or you try to be stealthy, you're kind of just making the game harder for yourself. Not all maps are horrible, but I do agree with quite a few of the maps are kind of meh. Frozen Swamp is like, I did a tier list of maps, right? And like, the tier list didn't really change with the newer maps. Like, Downtown is maybe like a B- for me. But all of the maps are just like, all of the maps, except for like Frozen Swamp and Mesa to a lesser extent, are kind of just walk around and not get shot while looting the random container in the middle of the open. Like, Stairway's god awful. Babel is, Cemetery, like, it's bad too. Like, at least Cemetery, like, the one redeeming fact about Cemetery over Stairway is at least it has a gimmick for it, right? I mean, it does, Snowman. Like, just because a game has issues, right, doesn't mean it's not redeemable. And, like, that's kind of how... If you ever played an early access game before, too, right? Like, this is kind of how early access goes. I will say, in regards to, like... This is gonna come off like such a dick thing, but I'm gonna say what it is what it is. In regards to, like, in my opinion... In regards to, like, full stack game development, like, doing the whole thing, they are incredibly green, it feels like. I wouldn't say development is slow. Considering the size of their team, their development is fast. It's just when you play every week or every day, it feels slow. I wouldn't, like, the biggest thing is, like, the game has issues, but in regards to time, like, I don't really care how long it takes. The only thing I'm concerned about, right, is, like, cash burn, but, like, no, early access is always rough. Like, every early access game, typically, it depends on, this is a problem with early access, though, too. Like, early access is so vague, you don't really know what type of early access it's going to be until it goes into early access and you start seeing player reception about what they're saying about the game, right? Because sometimes you'll have early access titles that are actually, like, truly early access, like they're missing vast swaths of content and their gameplay systems are still being figured out. Like, that is true early access. Like, that's alpha access, basically. But then you have games that are, like, basically just using early access for, like, a year for bug fixing and, like, quality assurance purposes. The whole game is basically there, and, like, all of the content's there. They might be adding some more content here and there for the most part, but polishing it up. But, like, some games just do use early access as like a quality assurance pass before going 1.0. And this is not one of those cases, right? This is a game where like the game is missing vast swaths of content, and we are experiencing that, and we're seeing raw systems too, right? I'm not gonna buy. Hold on here, sorry. I alt-tabbed to go ban a fucking bot on Twitch. Didn't they crack down on bots on Twitch? I mean, it's Amazon, so they fucking can't do their job right. But anyway. Anyway, like they come from mostly artist backgrounds too, so it makes sense on why they're very green in regards to full stack. But like, there's lots of things that I question for sure, but the most important part is here, right? Finding an audience for your game, even before the game is out, is definitely there are lots of game devs or game companies who I'm sure are envious of the spot Fundog is in, because sometimes for a lot of them, they make a perfectly good game, but they never find an audience, right? And so they might make a very fun game, they might make it a very successful game, like for all purposes, like the game is a good game, but it just never gets any traction. It never gets picked up by the zeitgeist of the internet. And so it gets eventually abandoned and not supported, so which kind of puts a nail in the coffin, right? So they have done the hard part first of actually like finding an audience. I mean, Dark, it kind of depends on like what you mean by profitable, right? Like if you mean in a very capitalistic sense of like every ounce of profit you can squeeze from something, sure. But if you mean to keep the lights on, I kind of disagree, right? Like if we're looking at it from a purely capitalistic perspective of being like, hey, your job is to maximize profit to the utmost extent, then sure. But if you're viewing it from you just have a bunch of guys you're making a game with and all you need to do is keep the lights on, I would disagree. I feel like that's a misconception of capitalism. Like, they're not a public company. Sure, they have their equity stakeholder, but they're not beholden to like public stakeholders, right? They don't have to like I hate this concept too, right? Because I hate the ideology of that, but we can get into that later if we really want to. But like they are not a public company. Sure, they have their own internal stakeholders, but they are not a public company. They do not have to do everything in the name of profit. Correct, and that's the thing, Dark, is like, yes, there's a responsibility to keep the lights on, right, Dark? 100%. But there's not a responsibility to like squeeze every ounce of profit out of the player base. All right, so this is what I mean, by the way, too, in regards to size and consistency. So we can see this tank here, which is very small, and then we can go over here, A47, and we have the exact same tank, but quite a bit bigger. And this probably isn't to scale either, too. It's closer to scale, but definitely not to scale. And so, like, we have mini tank, we have like 80% tank, and then we're still missing 100% tank. I don't know, Camphor. It seems that if I had zero knowledge at all, and I could only look at what they've been showing us, I would only have to assume that they're working on the game only and not on a franchise, because that's the only thing they've really put out in regards to that franchise. If we start seeing merch or other like art books and stuff like that, if we actually do see the art book, then yeah, I would think a lot more in regards to they're building the franchise as opposed to just a game. I would say, Dork, it makes this, you do not need to maximize, you don't need to min-max your profits to the fullest extent, to the point where you're exploiting your player base for every dollar they have via dark patterns and shit like that, to be sustainable. The problem is maybe why you might think that way, is there was a massive blow up during COVID of the business people for game studios thought what was the right what's the right idiom for this? Essentially, everyone being locked inside made game sales go up, and the MBAs, the people in charge of the game companies, never thought it was going to stop, right? They're like, oh, the sky's the limit here. We're never gonna have a downturn. And then the COVID bubble ended, and people started going outside again in droves, and suddenly all of that demand just evaporated. But they scaled up their businesses in respect of the actual COVID bubble players amounts, right? And so that's why you have this massive amount of downsizing going on right now, is because they thought that it was never going to stop. So the reasons why you might think that these companies need to min-max their profits outside of, being for their shareholders, is because they were making poor business choices for long-term thinking. And that's kind of the issue too, right? Of like, let's say the business folk nowadays, they are trained not to think long-term or sustainably, right? Their job is to by and large, when most companies are public, their job is to juice profits quarterly. That is kind of the end goal. Now, some companies will differ in that in regards to how much they will go into that kind of strategy of at what cost are they willing to sacrifice long-term for short-term. But by and large, I would say your line of thinking is more because the current people in charge of businesses make it that way. If you approach just sustainable development from an actual long-term perspective, I don't think you need, look at No Man's Sky, right? I know No Man's Sky is for example, the Golden Messiah on the Hill, right? They are the example, right? It's not fair to compare everything to No Man's Sky, but No Man's Sky is a very clear example, right, of just long-term sustainable development and not milking your player base for every dollar they have. And that's because they've remained lean over time, right? They were never about just eking out every source of revenue that they were, every source of dollar they could from the player base in the name of profit. Personally, I don't really care about No Man's Sky. I don't really play it at all. I'm not a big fan. I tried playing it again maybe a year ago, couldn't get into it. But I can't deny the fact that they've made a very sustainable game a game circle, right? That they're not milking their player base constantly in. And you do see the fatigue too, right? Look at Destiny. Destiny's had issues too in regards to their content, but this kind of short-term, profit-driven, incentive has really, I think, drained the Destiny player base and Destiny as a whole from any joy of making a game. Let's do Lamech Trench. So yeah, I mean, I do ultimately agree with you, Dork, that lots of companies operate that way, but I would say that's actually a problem, right? That's the problem of where we're at as a society in regards to current capitalism, right? It is everything in the name of short-term profit. I've seen ads for Destiny Rising. I'm guessing that's I haven't looked into exactly what it is. Is it just a free-to-play Destiny? Or freemium, rather? And it's hard to... I can put on multiple different hats too, right? So if I am the MBA, right, and I'm like, I need to make lots of money, and I want to do it in gaming, why would I not look at mobile and like freemium? Because you know the player base is there, like you know how easy it is to milk those players of their dollars. Or get into gambling. If I abandon any ethics I have, right, would I just not want to get into gambling and like sports gambling? How fucking lucrative that shit is? Who wouldn't want to be the house? You're guaranteed to make money. The odds are in your favor. In the long term, you always win. It's literal just math. Oh, it is. No, that's most of gaming nowadays. It's lots of gambling. Dude, holy shit. The Counter-Strike update recently? Holy shit. I don't think any of you guys play Counter-Strike. Okay, let me explain this to you. So, traditionally speaking, this has been the case for like 10 plus years at this point, for Counter-Strike. The way it would work, right, is a case drops. Like, let's say you play a Counter-Strike game and you get a case drop, right? So now you have a case you can open. And the keys have always been $2.50 USD. So you spend $2.50, you open the case, and you have a chance of getting something from that case. And that's the way it's always been, right? If you get like a 5-cent item or you get like a $500 item, right, that price is always dictated by the secondary market, right? Of who is willing to pay money for that. Valve has never done anything in regards to setting the price of things. However, what Valve has done with the recent update for CS2 is they have released their own container that's like, oh, it's not necessarily like a case it was before, but basically what you do now is you essentially gamble on potential items, but even if you get a good item, you have to pay what is essentially a price dictated by market price on that item. So like, for example, some of the skins that have been dropping recently have been like, congratulations, you get lucky. You can get like a very rare skin in CS2. You have to pay $1,500 for it. And that's the extreme example, right? But like, what's the appeal of opening cases when at most you basically make no money from them when you win big? Like, what the hell? Fucking scramblers, man. It is such a fucking yikes. I'm guessing, I cannot think on who the living fuck came up with that system. Honestly, in a way, the way I think about it is like some fucking lawyer came up with it because they're trying to figure out what can we do to probably get around gambling laws if the EU decides to crack down. Because like, in no fucking way would I ever think anyone would actually come up with a system like that. Like, naturally. It is so unintuitive, I feel like. And like, I'm guessing this is the start of Valve's villain arc. Granted, I think we started Valve's villain arc with Artifact, and this is like almost like Artifact 2.0.
Routing is always an option.
Fucking scramblers.
Not what I wanted.
Oh yes, the whole like, why don't we just make them pay per bullet? Good night, sweet prince. Fucking conga line. Maybe allowed. God, I hate stagger in this game. What? Stop staggering me. I'm gonna die here. Or am I? Jump tech. People don't like Gunhead because you can't heal. It's literally as simple as that. You can't heal. You also can't fully ADS either, but like it's mainly about not healing. When you just like naturally take lots of chip damage in game, Gunhead can be very rough.
Finishing by the second.
I am pretty low on meds here. Hey, Blood. I mean, I might play Gunhead too. It's just like, you know, some people like being able to heal.
Keep together.
The other problem with Gunhead 2 is like if you're trying to play stealthy, he's just the worst option. He is just less stealthy. I'm doing fucking nothing, John. It is literally just RNG if my internet cooperates. I do check it now, like before I start to see if it's a good day or not, but like, other than that, I have no control over it. Gun doesn't have stamina now. It's another perk of Gunhead. No stamina. Lots of HP, but you can't heal, and basically any gunner rig in the game.
Stay alive.
The downsides are no healing, and you are louder than other characters. Yeah, as well go. It definitely feels like the night shift chance of mech trench is like a 25%, maybe 10%, but like night shift mech trench happens a lot. All right, we'll play Gunhead. Let's get some quests too. No, can't do it yet. Does he have a stamina perk? He doesn't. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, the biggest downside of Gunhead, you can't pet the dog. Unplayable. I wonder if they're still floppy. I haven't tried in a while. I'm sure they probably still are. They're almost assuredly still floppy. Alright, scrapyard we go. Running this game on stream deck would be freaking rough, man. I don't. I just didn't have the NTW.
7 and 6, reporting clear skies ahead.
Alright, are you guys still floppy? Yeah, they're still floppy. I'm not doing co-op right now, Dark. Until I see a big patch that's focused on co-op, I'm not doing it. The best way is hostile expungement. The quest from Eurasia. My gun going to the side when I was backstrafing. Yeah, co-op can be, the peer-to-peer co-op experience can be very, very rough. And it's just not really enjoyable. The problem is, too, is when we did community streams, it just turned into railgun streams, and I really just don't like the railgun. I find it insanely boring. Are they shooting each other? What the hell? I have great news, Cat War Boss. You just, yeah, never mind. That's a thing, too. I would definitely say, from like a marketing perspective, it really feels like this game's supposed to be stealth, and it's really not that. Multiplayer is harder too, just because, yeah, you do the threat stacking seems to just affect everyone. It seems like there's 1 meter per threat, and like everyone adds to it in multiplayer. To my knowledge, the only loot that's affected by co-op is gonna be the codex's right for the railgun. Without large amounts of data, I would just say anything you experience in co-op in regards to data drop or like item drop rates is probably just a placebo. I can understand where you're coming from, but I would just not really, I would not put that much thought into it that the devs have considered that, to be quite frank.
Delete them.
The systems are not interconnected. I will tell you that right now. Lots of the systems are siloed off. I mean, so the thing is, like, the railgun controversy is not why I dislike the railgun. I dislike the railgun because from a gameplay perspective, it's just fucking boring. Like, okay, so you bring 3 players to a map, you assemble the railgun, and then you point and click for 10 shots, and then you loot, and then you're done. Like, it's not interesting. Like, all you're asking me to do is do something convoluted to go shoot, like, a gun 10 times. Like, it's not like you're working with a team to do something, right? It's just like the only requirements for the team is to have 2 other people bring shit. That's not teamwork, that's just having 2 lackeys.
We have the munitions to remove.
Like, it's not something cooperative, right? It's just something that requires 2 players at an arbitrary wall. I don't mind the reward, because the reward can just be placed a little different now, right? Like, I don't mind the reward, because, like, you can always change the rewards later pretty easily by adding things to the drop pool. The problem is, fundamentally, it doesn't really do what it's trying to do, right? Like, if the goal is to promote teamwork among scavs and give them something cool to do with that teamwork, it doesn't really do that. And I would say, like, to be fair, lots of games also struggle in this regard. Like, I am not saying that, like, there's clear examples of this across the industry, and they've failed at a fundamental thing developers can do. What I am describing is definitely a complex issue that games have issues with, right? Or, like, games are hesitant to do, right? Because forced cooperation's always a bit sketch. But if you're going to lean into something, you might as well go hard leaning into it, right? Like, for example, the main thing I'm drawing a parallel here with is Star Citizen. Multi-crew gameplay in Star Citizen is so underbaked right now because the job of the additional crew is absolutely boring and trivial. For the most part, most crew people in Star Citizen function as just a point-and-click machine for, like, turrets and shit. They're not really given an actual role or job to, like, help a ship operate. So, like, I'm not saying that, for example, they've done it wrong and, like, it's a clear thing that's done in the industry pretty well. There's clear examples of games who are supposed to be doing it correctly, who also do not do it right at all either. If you want to promote multi-crew gameplay in Star Citizen, then make multi-crew necessary. Sure, you're gonna have the solo players who are going to bitch and moan about their giant fucking multi-crew ship not being soloable anymore, but hey, that's the reason why teamwork exists IRL too. Like, there is a reason why ships have crew, because jobs needed to be done. And sure, you don't need to go through the effort of having, say, a cook, but, like, you can go through the effort of having, you know, for example, a logistical officer who's in charge of certain things, right? Or other things like that too, right? Like, you can simplify, you can gamify and simplify the actual jobs and condense them, but they still need to exist in some capacity. And, like, for all of the issue Ashes is having right now, I would say, I mean all the issues, Ashes of Creation is doing a good job of trying to stick to the paradigm of, like, hey, you cannot be the best at all things, at least not with one account. And, like, so for example, the way Ashes is doing this is Ashes is relying, I would say, a bit too heavily on crafting. I do think leaning on crafting is very good, but they're leaning a lot on crafting. But what they're doing with crafting is you can be a broad specialist. Like, you can get to, like, there's 5 tiers of crafting, right? I think there's only 3 in the game currently. And when you get to the highest tiers of crafting, you can only be that good at them for, like, 1 or 2 of them. There's, like, you know, I think 16 in game, maybe there might be more than that. I can't recall, maybe 24. So, like, you can only be good enough to do a few things at a master level. But the problem is lots of recipes, lots of things you need to do with crafting require stuff from other masters, right? So it promotes teamwork and trade. Like, in a way, you are forcing cooperation by the design of the game. What is that tree-like thing? Oh, wait, what? What is that tree-like thing? I'm not sure what you're referring to. You mean Gunhead? Are you referring to Gunhead? As the tree-like thing? I mean, I don't mind playing with a team like Nathan, but, like, there's not been a whole lot to incentivize co-op in this game, right? It exists to fill the co-op. Oh, the radar towers. Oh, okay. So every map has 3 of those radar towers on them. They are essentially ways where you can kind of get data on maps all it really does right now is tell you faction percentages and what active effects you've operated on the or created on the map. If you activate all 3 radar towers, you can get this information. You also get usually an opal spawn. Opals being a like an exosuit for your Eurasia. It doesn't really have that much gameplay functionality right now, so I usually don't do them. There's not a whole lot there in regards to gameplay yet, so. Diet, I can't really say all that much, because I do have inside knowledge of what it's going to be, so I really just can't say anything at all. But you should know by next week, I imagine. They've been doing monthly updates, I don't see that changing. There's not something I can say that I wouldn't feel would not violate potentially my NDA, so I'm not going to say anything at all in that capacity. And like, I disagree with the approach they take in regards to communication. I do think that what they're doing, they should have announced way before what they're going to release it on. Because the reason why they took down the demo, I would say, is appropriate. For why, like, the reasons why they took it down is, I think, is appropriate. Like, it was good for them to take down the demo, 100%. I do think them blindsiding, they have a desire to, like, for better or for worse, they want to evoke the old feeling of console games where you just had no idea going into the game what the game was going to be, right? But that's kind of more, I felt like, if there was channels of communication back in those days for you to relay information to your potential audience, I definitely feel like those companies would have done that, right? And they did through magazines. So I wouldn't say like the era that they're trying to emulate is by design, but more by the technology of the time, right? Essentially, I'm saying I don't think it's a great practice. And I do think that I do not think what they're going to be releasing should be blindsiding the player base. Do I think it's going to be controversial? I don't think so, but I also don't know. Well, dev blogs are the new magazines, just like Discord is the new magazine, right? Just, it provides such a clear way. I have been getting, hold on here. I don't want to share anything, like, for better or for fucking worse, like, I should probably mute them, because I don't, like, watch them a bit too much, but, like, this is an actual studio with a PR department, right? But, like, I get pinged on Discord by, like, a little bit, like, almost every week, at least once. Granted, I will say they are picking up because they just released Frostpunk 2 to console, so it does make sense on why they're, like, upping up their communication a bit. But, like, they do, like, communicate with their audience. Yes and no. I would say Discord's better than Steam, but, like, I would say out of all of them, Pixel, Discord's the best, but it still has plenty of shitters on it too, right? It's why, for example, I only, like, stay in a few channels on the main Discord for Everwinter. Like, I don't usually join the general chat or talk in the general chat of Everwinter, right? I talk in the game owner chat. It's a more curated chat. But no, like we have fundamental different disagreements. I've had a heart-to-heart with Miles about this, but like when I was talking to Discord, I think 1 or 2 days ago, and Nightmare kind of mentioned that, like, I don't know, it made me feel like they were like that the dev blogs were just a knee-jerk reaction to my heart-to-heart, and they're not earnestly trying to change or understand what I think the mistakes they're making are in regards to communication, right? yes, they got rid of their CM. I don't think I love Mads, right? Mads was doing a great job. Mads was what got me talking to them. But, like, I don't think what Mads was doing was very, like... I can understand why they probably let Mads go, is because Mads if Mads' main job was facilitating getting feedback to them from the scene discussions in Discord, I can understand why they were like, this is not helpful to us. But, like, sometimes it's not necessarily for them, it's more for us, right? Because a lot of the for example, I'll use this is what set me off in Discord yesterday. So, Nightmare mentioned how apparently, according to him, we don't know this to be true, but according to Nightmare, the Discord mod, behind the scenes, they were kind of ridiculing people who were, like, thinking that 1.0 was soon, from, like, seeing 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. But here's the thing. If you have not worked in software before, which I would say for the vast majority of the player base, if you are a basic pattern recognition monkey, like literally all of us are, that's ingrained in our DNA. It's why we are here as a society, is because we're really good at understanding patterns and finding patterns and interpreting patterns, right? And if you don't communicate with these pattern monkeys that we are, including myself, we are going to interpret the data in our own way and make inferences from that data. That's how we survive. And when you say 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, and you do that every month, right? People are going to assume 1.0 is in a few months. Are they wrong for doing that? Potentially. But when you give them no information, when you don't communicate with that community in regards to that, you cannot then ridicule them as being dumb. That is so brutally unfair. And it honestly shows a degree of animosity that I really hope isn't there. Because, like once I said, Nightmare might be oversimplifying it. This is not coming from the horse's mouth, so I do not know if it's coming from them. But I will say, if that's a sentiment they actually have, I will say it's a very dangerous sentiment to actually have. Because it's showing an underlying animosity for your player base, and it's showing that you do not appreciate like, I am an introvert. I do not communicate unless I have to, because I don't generally want to. It gasses me out. But not understanding why communication is important is fucking dumb.
We miscalculated.
And then to ridicule people for operating off that lack of communication, you're digging your own fucking grave. And sure, you might laugh at the player base for being stupid as you're digging your own grave, but we're all watching you dig your own fucking grave. It is very Randy Pitchfork-esque, yes, 100%.
Well, we're still here. Let's count for something.
Oh no, and we were just talking about like Discord a bit and like just a few different things about communication and stuff like that, because we're talking about the patch coming next week, and I cannot say really what's in the patch at all, despite me knowing at least me knowing the big thing in the patch, right? Potentially in the patch. But like we were kind of talking about how like I personally would think that this mechanic they're introducing, or this thing they're introducing, is worthy of a dev blog before it comes out. And they do not share that sentiment, right? And they're doing it under the guise of trying to evoke this old retro feeling of games where you didn't know what was happening until it came out, right? Like you didn't know what a game was going to be until it came out. And like my point was more in the sense of that was more a product of its time than being good practice, because you didn't have direct communication lines with players back in the day. And the ways you did, the people actually pursued, right? Like magazines. Like you would have, you know, articles and magazines all the time that like were curated articles. They like, you know, the person paid the magazine to put it in their, you know, in their magazine. Hey Snowman. And we were just like, I kind of then spiraled into like, you know, for example, to give you another recap too, I was talking to Nightmare on the Discord a few days ago, and Nightmare mentioned how we don't know this to be true, because this is not coming from the horse's mouth. This is coming from intermediary Nightmare, that like they were ridiculing the player base, or at least parts of the player base, for like saying or thinking that 1.0 was soon, from them seeing 0.5, 0.6, 0.7 in monthly patches, and assuming that, hey, if we're incrementing by 0.1, that means 1.0 is in, you know, 3 or 4 months. And how I think it's brutally unfair with the developers having inside knowledge of their game to assume the player base knows better without communication. And that kind of sprouted into me basically ranting that it's utterly unfair, and I would say it's unfair, and it shows a degree of animosity toward the player base, or at least certain types of players, which that part I think has been reinforced a bit, to be perfectly honest.
Just one more.
And I can understand too. Like, I've worked with clients before where, yeah, as a way of venting, you do talk to your coworkers about like, hey, you know, like this client's being unreasonable, right? Fuck them. It is a way of venting, right? But like overall, you can't have animosity toward your client, I feel like, right? It can't be a hostile relationship.
This is it. We decide what happens next.
Well, here's the thing though too, right? It's such an easy clear up, and like, sure, they might not feel like they need to address it publicly, right? But it's one of those simple things, right, Pixel, where like just any type of communication over time, and like part of it too, right, is that if we not necessarily had a roadmap, but we had any idea of what they're planning and their long-term goals were, this would never have come up, right? Even if their versioning was poor. It is not necessarily the only result of like the versioning numbering. It was a result of literally that and no communication at all in regards to the game at all. So like, once again, if you have these information voids and you give the player base nothing, they're going to fill it in their own way, via apathy or via speculation, and you can't really fault them for that, right?
We decide what happens next.
And like the dev, like I had a heart-to-heart with Miles about a month ago in regards to communication, and the dev blogs were the knee-jerk reaction to that. And once again, we fundamentally disagree, which is very fucking clear at this point. But like, I personally think what I think is coming next patch, to my understanding, is something they should be very clear of in a dev blog. Perhaps weeks ago. Because you do two things. You build up hype to an extent, but you also like let people start thinking about what their expectations are, right?
Eyes on us.
You will have the people who are being unrealistic, and you can't really control that. But if you blindside the player base, like, all you're gonna get is the knee-jerk reactions by the player base. You're gonna have people going to Steam discussions being like, "Stamina's bad, lol." I mean, I'm of the opinion they do not need a definitive roadmap at all. Like, there should be no dates on the roadmap at all. And like, it could be just broad strokes, right? But having just something in like in the way of like, hey, we're working on X, Y, and Z, or hey, Y is coming, or B, we're working on this mechanic. They don't need to go into details. If their concern is spoiling, you don't need to go into the details of the mechanic. You can just say, hey, we're working on this mechanic. It's gonna be broad strokes X, Y, and Z. The details are, you're gonna play the details. You're gonna see how it's implemented. You're gonna see like the secrets. You're gonna see like, how it works exactly. That will be the actual like things we don't spoil.
As long as I'm the last one.
No, yeah, 7 Days to Die is a good example. The 7 Days to Die to me feels like a game that's been so long in development. The original project people, the people like who made the game, have gotten old enough. They've wanted to move on to another game, but didn't want to abandon that game that they made before. So like, what I kind of feel like happened is that like essentially mid-oven bake, they're trying to change the recipe.
As long as I'm the last one.
So all you get is an amalgamation. Well, I mean, I really just think Embed, like, when it came down to it, is like literally just that. It was like, hey, you know, like, I've made this game for like 10, 12 years at this point, and I've had changing interests now, so I'm gonna make the game what I want it to be now, as opposed to what it was. Zomboid's been great. No, Zomboid's a great example of like, and like, that's the big thing too, right? I try to make it very clear, this is not a patience thing, right? I don't care how long they take. You can historically see what I've backed. You know I don't care how long it takes. I've backed Warframe, I've backed Ashes, I've backed Star Citizen. I do not care how long it takes. I would rather sign on to a dream than see something rushed out. Now, I will still critique the project management if I think it's doing a poor job, right? But sometimes things just take time. Now, do I think Star Citizen and other games like that have been mismanaged? Sure. But like Project Zomboid's a great example too, right? Of like, Zomboid hasn't really changed at all. It's just always been its own small project, and that's grown over time, but very slowly, right? Like, Zomboid never set out to be this, you know, giant AAA, like, MMO, like Star Citizen or Ashes Creation's trying to be, right? It just wanted to be a zombie game, and it's grown organically over time. And it's you know, its employees have grown over time too, right? But in a very slow and organic way. And that's another example, going back to like, if Dark is still here, right? Sort of like, hey, a more, like, consumer friendly or like ethical approach, right? Like, you can say like, you know, Zomboid has had to keep the lights on, right? It might have been a passion project for like an indie dev for a while, right? But they have actual employees now too, right? But like, they're not trying to milk the player base, they're just trying to make a game and keep the lights on. They're not trying to pay their employees, you know, as much money as they possibly can by milking the player base. They're just saying, you know, we're just gonna try to keep the lights on. We're gonna try to make sure we make a decent salary, have a good living, and, you know, make a game you guys want to play. We're not trying to make infinite money for our shareholders. So let's be old for a bit. And downtown. And like, to be fair, I do think Fundog is taking the same approach, right? Fundog does have a stakeholder now, but I will change my tune when I see it. I hope you guys know that of me, right? If I see something change, I will change my tune. I'm not stubborn in regards to that particular thing. So like, if I see Fundog doing bad shit, like over monetizing their game, I will call it out. Trust me. I won't make a video on it, but I will call it out. So, like, hey, the VC thing, I don't give a shit about, but like, if it changes, I will change my tune. It's one of those things, right, where you note it in the back of your head, and you just move on. I don't think it's a big deal, but if it becomes a big deal, I will make a note of it, and probably say something. But I don't think it is. Come on, downtown, give me another quest. Yeah, I mean, I usually like only play Zomboid like once, like maybe like every couple years. But when I play it, I get really into it, right? Because it's one of those games, right, where I just like, when I play it, I want to sink lots of hours to it, like lots and lots of hours into it, but like sometimes that's just not feasible. Yeah, that's the whole thing with the whole VC thing, right, is now they have a stakeholder. And we don't know the particulars at all, right? So, like, anything is basically just speculation. We don't know the degrees of their deal, right? Naturally, with a VC, it's some degree of equity for you know, money, right? Anything beyond that is just pure speculation. Yeah, a Zomboid stream would definitely be interesting, but it also would just be like, I would have to sit down for a long period of time. The thing with Zomboid, right, is that it's one of those games where it's like my just sit and chill game where like I just throw like YouTube or, you know, a video on the other screen and just vibe to Zomboid, which, to be fair, is probably not the best way to play Zomboid, considering getting bit kills you and being distracted kills you. But I digress. Yeah, that's the big thing. It's like there's no rush, right? Like, if that's kind of why I like Ludroth. I've always felt like they have the monthly cadence has been weird to me because it feels like they're in this crunch when it feels like you guys can just take your time, right? Now, Runway is always a different story, right? Cash burn's a cash burn. I think there's a mod imp that I've always wanted to install in Zomboid where, like, if you do get like a scratch on an arm, you can cut off that limb, and it would it has like a higher chance of saving you, if not like 100% chance. So like, if you really want to get crazy, if you get like, you know, bit on the like the finger or the arm, you can cut that arm off, and now you're gimped, right? But like, you do save your your character's life. But now you're playing with one arm. Or one leg. Oh god, I couldn't imagine doing it with one leg. You would know. Oh man, if you had to like cut off a toe or a finger or a foot. Oh man, getting bit in the foot's very hard in Zomboid. I will say I haven't played that much Zomboid with the basement update, so like next time I play Zomboid, it's gonna be very interesting with all the basements around. Oh, we need to go get Psycho Killer. Well, like Cat War Boss, the monthly cadence of patches just feels very unnatural to me. Especially when the monthly patches aren't just like them just adding in very like both the way and the speed at which they're doing monthly patches just feels unnatural to me.
All or nothing.
Because it does feel, Warboss, a lot more like they're like almost like faux live service, where these patches are actually like, if this game was more like Subnautica Early Access, where there was vast swaths of content missing, and when they were doing monthly or doing patches right, they were adding in more stuff, but it was so very clearly raw and baked and like, you know, for testing purposes. It doesn't feel like that in this game.
Way too hot.
It doesn't feel like that's their mentality with these patches. And it's just I can't like exactly quantify it, right? But it's just a feeling I get from like how they word or show their patches off along with the content in their patches, that it feels much more like faux live service as opposed to like an actual game development. I don't know. It's weird. It almost like it feels like they're not willing to show us stuff that's raw, right? Like that was always something I liked about Subnautica Early Access, is like Subnautica Early Access, if you went to an area that like wasn't done yet, it would just not be there. Like you would see the void, you would just see like the terrain with nothing on it. Like you would see like the skeleton there, right? They weren't going to go hide it from you because it's early access, right? You signed on for this. You signed on for a game you know was going to be incomplete and raw and being developed. But like, here's the thing though too, right, Warboss? Like Tarkov, for example, right? Tarkov's been in early access, but Tarkov's done the same thing with reworks, right? And like, you can basically say like Tarkov Early Access is basically faux live service. It feels like, it doesn't feel like an early access for development. It feels like an early access for just like actually, let me put it this way. As I was saying before, right, early access can fall into a few different categories. some companies will use early access for like sales and PR and like quality assurance testing before they get released within the next year or two. It feels like we have a game that's kind of like an alpha, but it's presented and displayed in a way where it's like the other one, right? I don't know. It's hard to exactly quantify, right? It doesn't feel like my mental image of like an early access game that's like an alpha. But maybe that's just because I've seen very, very raw games before, like OG Star Citizen, for example, like, you know, 2016 Star Citizen. Oh God. Like my, you know, like Subnautica, right? Or Natural Selection. Like I did very early on Natural Selection 2, right? Like Natural Selection 2, seeing that get developed also, same thing. And then Dune Spice Wars also. Granted, Dune Spice Wars was a different kind of story or paradigm too. Like, because it was like a more of an RTS 4 times, the game was kind of there. It went through quite a few different reworks. And like, I don't know, the interaction I had in early access with Dune Spice Wars was weird, just because I had like direct interactions with the developers consistently every day. Like I talked to the lead dev guy like literally every day when I was streaming that game. It is super rare. And I had to keep that like perspective in mind that like, hey, my interaction with that developer is not normal place. And I can't apply that to Fundog, right? Or like Pixel, for example, right? Like maybe it's just too that they're because they're artists also, they just lean into like they do not want to ship an unfinished picture, right? In regards to their maps or like weapons, I guess. Like the maps they push out are so like detailed and like object dense. Should I go to the dark area? Or I can't do out of bounds right now because I wouldn't live as old man, right? But I don't know. It just like it's literally just a feeling. It's hard for me to quantify exactly.
No win, fight ahead. Oh shit, taking fire.
Yeah, that's the whole thing too, right? Like, as like it needs to be like a middle ground, right? Like it doesn't need to be an extreme either way, because both extremes are unhealthy, right? And like it doesn't help out either too that if they're doing monthly patches along with like a dev blog or like a Q&A or doing whatever they're trying to do on that same cadence would be a lot.
All or nothing.
But like it's more in the sense I would say like the dev blog, like with what I think is coming up, I think personally it should not blindside the player base. And like you rationalizing to the players what it accomplishes in your setting and your world and why it needs to exist, I feel can buy you a lot of understanding for people to digest before they play it. Like, and here's the thing too, right? With the IRL water system, like imagine for example, let's say it's April of last year and you're in the Discord and they do a dev blog talking about their water system. Would you not expect people to poke holes in that system immediately before they developed it? Like, it doesn't require like a rocket scientist to tell you why this water system doesn't work in a game like this before you even make it. And like, at that point, you save lots of dev time in that capacity, right? At least personally, right? I don't think it was controversial at all, right? I think like almost unanimously, like sure there was a few people who was like it's fine, I don't give a shit about it, but like I feel like the vast majority of the players like yeah, this is a bad fucking system for the game they're trying to make. Or rather in the sense of like, hey, you shouldn't be calling this a PvE offline extraction shooter and making this system in the same game. I mean, it kind of goes with the whole IRL crafting timers 2 pixel. I've talked to them about it too. I don't think it's going to change, but like I've made my case. It is what it is. But hey, maybe if more of you bitch and complain too, maybe it will change. And it could be a thing too that maybe they're just, you know, there is some still big vision there in regards to IRL crafting timers that I just don't fucking see. I don't feel very safe right now. Here's the thing, I don't hate crafting timers, but they need to exist for any reason. And like, I will even accept if that reason is to push monetization. Like, for example, Warframe. The crafting timers there serve as a means of pushing you toward monetization. I can understand the context of why they exist in that capacity, and am fully okay with them, with Warframe being a freemium game. I can understand the context of why they exist. Or in a game that like it doesn't make any, like it's not grounded in any reality in this game, right? It's siloed off, it doesn't touch anything, it's meaningless. Yeah, I can't blame you for that, Emp, but at least rationally, it makes sense to me why they exist. I'm not saying Fundog should do that, but like I can logically be like, hey, they're a freemium game, they have to push monetization, and patience checking people is a way of doing that. But in a game like this, right, where like, you know, a 31 crafting hour timer for painless, what does waiting 31 hours do? Nothing. And like, I will say this though, right? In the old water system, the crafting timers actually make sense. In a system where water is being drained over time, I actually do not hate the crafting timer, right? Because the crafting time is contextualized by the water drain. But since water drain went the way of the dodo, because it needed to for it to fulfill the purpose of a PvE extraction shooter in my opinion, the crafting timer is part of that legacy that needs to be taken out back and shot, or reworked to make sense in the current system. There is no reason I should have to arbitrarily wait for 30 seconds for a grenade to craft. It does nothing. Like, okay, I craft, like, if I wait here for 30 seconds, right, does anything happen? If I wait here for 5 minutes, does anything happen? If I wait for 31 hours, does anything happen? No. It serves no purpose. And this might be part of like the hidden thing they haven't shown us yet. Maybe there is stuff coming that will contextualize this. You know that I would personally think would be a great reason to put that in? A dev blog. Do you need to go over the entire system and tell us all the nuance and the details and all of the spoilers? No. But you can say, hey, we're, you know, in the near to distant future, we're adding a system in that is called X system, and our goal is it for to do this, and one of the goals can be to help contextualize crafting timers. Do you need to tell us all the ins and outs? No, because you might not know them yet. You just know your design goal. Do you need to tell us all the nuance and secrets of it? No. But you can just tell us the broad strokes. And tell us your design philosophy behind that, because that personally would buy. If I knew there was something coming in the future, I would stop bitching about the crafting timers. Even if I fundamentally, like listen, I don't care if it's a monetization thing. Like, it could be like the most watered down basic bitch version of the system, right? As long as there's some context there that I can understand, right? I'm okay with it. Yeah, like, there is that fear factor, like, they don't want to keep them, like, if they are very, like, loosey-goosey and don't want to be beholden to something they say, I can understand their perspective, right? But when that gets into, like, a project management thing, I feel like, or scope management too, it just feels like if that's the case, Diet, then there's other red flags there, right? I think. If you're this far in development and you're still playing it that loosey-goosey, I'm kind of a little sus. And that's where the communication comes into factor too, right? Like, for example, if they're unsure about a system, right? There's nothing wrong with polling the audience. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, like, players do come up with lots of terrible fucking ideas. Like, I'm not gonna whitewash it. Like, players are historically very fucking awful at coming up with gameplay ideas. But that doesn't mean they can't inspire you yourself, right? Like, just because the ideas they come up with bad doesn't mean they can't give you ideas personally. Alright, we're good. And that's definitely a factor too. I would say that, like, that's what early access feels to me, right? Like, in a sense of, hey, I mean, to be fair, they did do that too, right, with Water. I can't say they didn't try. Like, they tried out early Water, they tried out Water 2.0, and now we're at Water 3.0. They did genuinely try that. I can't say they didn't. But, like, that's the thing that, that back and forth is what early access feels like to me, right? Like, for all of their faults, like Steven and Ashes of Creation, they do take that approach and that communication style a lot, like, right, in the sense of, you guys have signed up for early access or, like, for an alpha. This is not the norm, but, like, we're going to have a back and forth with you, right? Like, you know, we're gonna try things out that might not work well. And so, for example, like, right now in Ashes of Creation, in the current PTR, the current build of Ashes of Creation, they have dramatically reduced the drop rates of actual NPCs to make NPC dropped loot very rare. It still happens, but it's not common, to really push crafting. And I would say that's unsuccessful. I would say that, like, there are certain areas of the game where it creates a lot of tension, but, like, them now knowing that is valuable information for them, right? And they wouldn't know that without trial and error. But, like, that's well communicated too, right? And don't get me wrong, there are still plenty of man-children in, like, the Discord chat throwing a fucking tantrum. You can't help them, though. You shouldn't be playing around them. It's one of my favorite things too. Like, this is a good mentality to have when it comes to, I would say, at least competitive games or just sports in general. You have to take the best route to win, even if the best route means, like, you're gonna, like, you have to play to win, right? Even if the thing is risky. Like, if you don't see a path forward to victory, you have to take the path forward to victory, even if it's improbable or unlikely. You're not playing for a tie, you're playing for a W, right? And if, like, for some reason in the middle of a round, you only feel like you're gonna win the round if you do X, Y, and Z, then you need to go do X, Y, and Z, even if it feels unnatural or unlikely that's going to work, because that's your only play. A clear example of this, right, will be like, for example, let's say you're in a 1v2 or 1v3 and you plant the bomb. You have to go look for 1v1s. Like, it might feel unnatural for you to be aggressive and for you to try to get those kills, and just like, you planted the bomb, shouldn't you play defensively to defend the bomb? No. If you're in a 1v3, it's unnatural to think this, but your best odds of winning are going and taking 3 1v1s. Even if it's improbable that you win those 3 1v1s, it's still the right move because that's your path to victory. So, like, it's an important thing of sports, right? Like, even if the correct choice, even if something seems improbable, right? If it's your best chance of winning as a team, you kind of have to do it. Yeah, it's because it's very unnatural, and it can, like, depending on the context, it can be very sacrificial too. Like, when you get to the high levels of, like, I would think, when you get to the high levels of, like, military leadership, you start having to, like, essentially desensitize yourself to loss, right? Because let's say you have to go send 1,000 people to their death, but it might save 10,000 troops, or it might save X, Y, and Z. Like it might feel wrong to go send X amount of people to go die, but it might objectively be the right choice for victory that might save more people. It's a very utilitarian way of looking at things, right? But it's very unnatural thinking. It's thinking objectively right, yeah. Well, I would say not necessarily that, Ludraoth, but I would also say, like I said, I do not know this to be, like, this is my mental picture of it. I don't know this to be actually true or not. So if you want to go to research, but at least this is how mentally it works to me. This might not be right, but it's probably the reason why too, when you have like high level leadership, they are in a different track. Like, you don't see a private become a general, right? You don't see a sergeant become a general. You don't see a lieutenant become a general. Maybe a lieutenant, but that's a different story entirely. But like, the people who become high-level leadership usually are tailored to be so, right? So they never get that attachment, I think, to infantry. Because it probably removes their ability to be objective. Because once you start seeing the faces and people that you're sending off to their death, it becomes so much harder to do so. It kind of reminds me too of Ender's Game. If you never read Ender's Game, you can watch the movie. The book does it better. Ender's Game is a great kind of thing about this too, right? If you never read Ender's Game, read Ender's Game. Ender's Game is great. Yeah, Ender's Game is not exactly what I'm describing, but it's very relatable to what I'm describing. But if you haven't read it or seen it before, I definitely do not want to spoil it, because it's a very good experience to have without, like, knowing beforehand what it's about. I think cyborgs are overtuned, Savage. I think they buffed them a bit too much. If they want to, like, I would put onto paper what they actually want cyborgs to feel like. Because I think if they put it on paper, they realize how unreasonable cyborgs are right now. There was a time and period where, like, only the Scar and maybe like a few other guns that were like full auto would one-shot headshot cyborgs, and I think that was a good balancing point for them. When like the RPK wouldn't, but the Scar would. I think that was like my perfect balance for cyborgs. Because you cannot silence the Scar, so it felt like a good trade-off, right? Because the Scar has way bigger downsides than like it has downsides for its damage, right? Actually, I think the Ludroth, there was a period where the shotguns were nerfed, where the Scar would still one-shot headshot. So like you had a brief period where like the go-to gun, if you needed to kill like Vastrovs as cyborgs, was just the Scar. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense too, right? Like, there is a very clear, like, lore reason too why it makes a lot of sense, because, like, hey, you know, it makes sense that why Europa upgunned themselves to a 50 caliber assault rifle, or not assault rifle, but rifle, if their main controversy, or their main, sorry, not controversy, their main adversary was, like, cyborgs. Let's keep upping our gun to the point where we can actually kill these creatures. Shotguns are kind of meh. Shotguns, like, well, okay, here's the thing. Ludroth. I feel like it's very important to not get too auto shotgun pilled. Because naturally, like, the problem is both the surplus and the S12 exist. And so, like, I feel like you cannot just like look at the 32 drum magazines of the AA-12 and be like, yeah, shotguns are fine, when like the surplus shotgun and the S12 are basically unusable. All we know, chill guy, is that it's going to be something big that made them take down the demo. That's all we can really say. Yeah, and it's literally, for example, the reason why the US military adopted a new rifle that is controversial, right? Because infantry do not want to carry heavier guns and less ammo, but, you know, the military is like, hey, the next gen body armor is here, and even our, like, armor-piercing 5.56 is having issues. We need to go to a bigger round. I think the main adversary they're worried about right now is China because of Taiwan. So I think they're mainly speccing out for that. I don't think China has exosuits yet, though. I don't know what China has. It's kind of hard to tell with the PR. Let's go. Let's some guys flying, because why not? There's a lot of pundits who really think that there's going to be a war fight like Taiwan in the next like 2 to 3 years, I think. People are saying that's China's windows to invade Taiwan. Naturally, it's just pundits doing like, no one knows the future. It's just pundits, you know, justifying their paycheck. Yeah, pundits are pundits are hype people because they have to be to, you know, make money. Yeah, I don't really know enough about Taiwan outside of its like very geographically like rough terrain, so like I can't speak on it too much. But like no, that's what I hear the pundits say, right? Is like 2 to 3 years, like that's China's window to invade Taiwan. And they're gearing up, so like that's what the, you know, military is gearing up against, right? Is that kind of peer-to-peer conflict. I'm not even sure, like, is it just the fabs? Like, I'm trying to think, like, is it just because they don't like Taiwan being close to them. I'm trying to understand like the strategic reasons why like China's freaking out about Taiwan, but I'm guessing it's probably because like, hey, having a military base there for potentially America or just an adversary is not a great look. Yeah, but I don't feel like invading a country for its fabs just means that they destroy the fabs. Or they hold the fabs at like hostage, right? Yeah, if it's related to the South China Sea, I guess that's probably the main thing, right? Shipping routes.
Oh, we should have chosen another exit.
Yeah, I know that part of it, right? I know that, like, you know, China is, like, yeah, essentially, China is the old government of China. They're the exiles from, you know, the Mao takeover, communist takeover of China. I know that part of it. It's more in the sense of, like, the, like, strategic, like, reasons why China would really want Taiwan. Other than, like, microchips, right? Because I feel like the chip industry is definitely not the main interest. The South China Sea does make sense, though. And the main thing too is like having a military base near you that might not be your friendlies, I guess makes sense also. And like coming as an American, right? What's better than a military conflict to, you know, shore up local instability? That's such a common trope among, like, you know, governments having issues with local populations is like, hey, let's create a conflict, let's have a war that will really, really make people back home happy and give them something to rally with each other about. I think that was like a big aspect of the Falklands War too, if I recall correctly. was Argentina just trying to shore up local issues under the guise of, like, you know, national identity. Hey, no. Lots of stuff gets them into during wartime. Or the Cold War time, too. There's nothing better than competition to spur innovation. I do not... The wiki should tell you, GM. If you go to the wiki for the M4A1, it should tell you what level you get it unlocked. You're almost probably better off just killing your opens. If you take the plug pull quest, the guards that spawn near the plug pull guy will traditionally use M4A1, so they'll drop parts for it. Alright, do we have an exo fight out here? This is fun. Get up. Emp is correct, they are dropped from fucking airplanes. It wouldn't make sense why they're fall resistant. Guys, I'm gonna personally promise you, if they ever let me in, I will fix all of the guns. I will make the bloom go away. If it has to be manually done on each fucking gun, I will do it. I hate it so goddamn much. Alright, we got T90s. Do we have our other half? Nope, does not appear so. I hate the bloom on the gun so fucking much. I hate Halo Reach. I love Halo Reach. I hate Halo Reach. Unfortunately, they're probably outside the scope of what they would ever allow me to do. I feel the level designer fucking like has my number. I can read the room. I would never have the ability to fix that. I have mentioned it before, and boy did I fucking read the room. Like, this is off the fucking table. I love Halo Reach. I also fucking hate Halo Reach. I hate Bloom so goddamn much. Alright, we are a spacefaring superpower, and our primary assault rifle for our infantry is going to have an MOA of 50. They are going to miss a broadside of a barn with their main gun. Fucking, what's his name? Okay. I usually will not shill for other YouTube channels, but I will shill for this guy. There's a guy called Wayne Radio TV, and he has done a few long form videos, and it's just kind of like meme shitposty, like parody videos of certain things, right? And the main one I love is that he did like a whole video series of a playthrough of Half-Life in VR, where like he had a bunch of people masquerading as AI. But what his most recent work was literally doing the entirety of Breaking Bad and like Gary's mod, and during the parts of where they went to Mexico, you would cross over a boundary and it would immediately be Mexico filter. It would just turn orange. It was so fucking great. It's so fucking funny and stereotypical though. Yeah, we got painless, we're good. We don't need meds though, actually. Yeah, I personally preferred his Half-Life VR AI videos a bit more, but I did enjoy it is literally like a fever dream, like parody, like version of Breaking Bad. It is something else. All right, Mesa. Yeah, it's gonna be this entry point, right? This entry point can go to 9. I'm glad recoil is back unknown. I do think it's overtuned. I think all they did for recoil currently was they just added back in the old recoil globally to all of the guns. So there's no nuance yet. So like SMGs having the same recoil as AKs, the same recoil as a SCAR just feels wrong. So like I think on a baseline, they can probably cut it in half and then fine tune it from there. But granted, I don't know how they have to do that on their guns if it's a very slow and tedious process. So like, yeah. But I'm glad it's back, but I do think it's overtuned. The patches were like the like what 4 or 5 month window where we had guns with no recoil. it made all of the guns feel samey and boring.
We have the munitions to remove the threat.
It's always like Ludroth, that spawn's always had potentially more than that. And there's a weird thing too, I will say, unknown also, where let me get to a safe spot. Or a relatively safe spot. Climb, gunhead, climb. I don't think it is currently, but like, hopefully that's the intent. It just might be a very manual, slow process for them. Yeah, no. That's basically what I was about to go show you, unknown. It seems like the way they do recoil is different in first person than third person, which I guess is fair because I don't know, like, what it... Essentially, yeah. So, like, Gunhead operates on this old issue of recoil. I'm in a relatively safe spot now. Okay, so, like, this was, like, the issue with lots of guns beforehand, is that it would have this really weird jump before turning into a laser. They have fixed the whole laser part of it, but like for some reason in third person, the guns still jump. Now in first person it doesn't. And like that's the confusing aspect too, is right? Because it makes me think that for every single gun in the game, there's a first person recoil pattern or first person recoil and then third person recoil, right? Which just seems so complex. I don't know it to be true, but it feels that way, right? Like there's an issue, like for example, if I was using a different character other than Gunhead in first person, the recoil wouldn't be like that, right? There wouldn't be that initial weird jump. Yeah, like, I don't know, Em. It feels weird and unnatural to me. And considering the file structure we showed yesterday about the file structures of the weapons too, it just feels like what the hell is going on with the guns? And it makes sense too, right? Like why they might be hesitant or can't easily go to every single gun in the game. Like, okay, here's the thing. If I was doing guns in a game, the mental way I would think of picturing it was having some system I can apply to every gun in the game and having the values of those guns manipulate that, right? So I could just store the guns in a JSON file. And then if I wanted to change recoil or like the direction of recoil or the spread, all I would have to go is go to the JSON file and change the numbers around. I wouldn't have to go in engine. Because I don't know how UE5 does it, so I could be wrong in this, but like mentally, logically, that's how I would approach it. Same thing with units too, right? Like, that's how I would approach, like, units, right? Like, their damage, their HP, their armor if they had any, their movement speed. I would think, right, just store it in a JSON file, read it into the game, and have that be interpreted by whatever we set up for the, like, the units, right? Granted, I don't know how UE5 works in that capacity, but, like, logically, that's how I would approach it. Because that just means, like, later on, if I want to tweak things or balancing, I can just go into that file and tweak it really easily.
Dumping targets.
I don't know. I didn't know that, unknown, but, like, well, it's... Wait, are they all just on there but hidden? They don't spawn them in when you bring... Oh, that would make sense on why you can see some weapons sometimes on guns. So what you're saying is actually that they're all on the guns at the same time. They just hide the model when it's not being used. Is that more work than just having it spawn when you have it? I guess there's different checks. I don't personally know, right? I guess I played around in UE5 enough to know that typically speaking, yeah, like that's the approach for guns, is to have it just when you're not using it, or like a magazine, right? It's just to have it hidden off screen, or to, like, basically have it hidden. I know that practice, right? But I guess that would make sense too, to just have all the guns function the same way. That seems so complex though. if that was, I believe you, Unknown, and if that's the case, it would just reinforce, I think, mentally my argument of staying away from having that many attachments per gun. That makes a lot of sense, Unknown. That makes a lot of sense to me, Amp, yeah. And like I've done enough stuff in UE5 to know that like, yeah, like the practice is like if you're not rendering or you're not using something immediately for a character but you need it for the character, just to have it attached to the character but not visible. Or not even like, you know, like it's not there. It's there but it's not there. So if they're approaching all the mods like that, that makes sense to me. Granted, it sounds very fucking complicated when you have how many fucking mods per gun, but I understand that. And it reinforces my emotions like, hey, what if we just had guns that had like 2 or 3 different variants as opposed to a full mod system? Yeah, I've seen the mag floating at like 100 times before. I've seen also, like, for example, the RPK AK. If you have the drum mag on, you'll see the actual magazine, the base magazine for it too. Yeah, and if I was a fly in that room, I would grow a mouth and be like, stop, please, don't do this. Don't do this. Just, smaller is better. How much customization is there in Squad though, right? Like, do they have like lots of different like attachments where you can have like lots of different permutations of guns, or is it like only a few? I mean, I've made a post in Discord before saying like, hey, less is more. Disco, what I hope is that I hope Theaters of War is the front end of a simulation happening in the back end. See, Telmo, thanks for stopping by. My concern seeing lots of their systems thus far is that it's all a bit superficial, and what you see is what you get, right? The front end is also the back end. What you see is what's there. I'm not saying this to be true. I'm just saying what it feels like currently. So I am just hoping that whatever they do with the Theaters of War system is actually have this simulation happening in the back end over like times, right? It doesn't have to be like it let's say, for example, you know, if they're not gonna go to like a turn-based system, right? Perhaps they treat each day as a tick. And so like, let's say, for example, you spend a year off the game, and when you come back into the game, it sees the last time you played and says, okay, since the last time you played, there has been 365 ticks that have happened for this simulation. And so as part of the load process, they run their simulation in the back end for, you know, doing this war, right? And it sounds like a lot, but like, this is not a system that needs to be shown to the players, so it can be very artificial, and it's trying to do is have the background war make sense if it's ever under scrutiny to the players, right? It needs to feel like a conflict, right, that's happening. In my opinion, naturally. Like that's what I'm hoping Theaters of War is an actual simulation going on in the back end. I don't think it's that yet, but I'm hoping it will eventually will be that. To the point where you see, like, you see things change control over time. You get a sense of battle lines. You get a sense of who's winning the local conflict or who's losing the local conflict in here and there. And if they don't want to do turn-based, right, they can do tick-based, where they can have it, you know, every single tick, which they could make an hour, a day, a half a day, whatever they want, a week. They can have things change on the map as opposed to it's simulating a turn or a war. Yeah, that's kind of the whole thing, right? Is like, if the goal of the game is to make it feel like you're a survivor during this war, the war should not care about you, and the war should go on regardless of if you're here or not. Now, if that's the real-time approach, right? If they wanted to like keep the current system, personally, I think they could do a lot with the turn-based system that will, I think if they're trying to ever balance the game in any meaningful capacity, balancing the game requires you kind of figure out a sense of time for the players, right? Or like it's very hard to balance like a game like this between players who play 1 hour a week or 10 and making resources feel scarce or making it feel like you're a survivor, right? Because you can't pace those players the same way really without some type of drain. And if you have that drain, like air or water, be drained over time, like the 1 hour player is going to be disadvantaged to the 10-hour player, and they're going to have different experiences. But if you make the drain as opposed to real-time based, turn-based, you can set the pacing based on turns as opposed to on real-world time. So if you have a player do 10 turns in a week and you have a player doing 10 turns in a month, they should have wholly on a very similar experience, because now time is no longer part of the equation, at least out of game time. I definitely do think there is an issue with too many cooks in the kitchen. I mentioned this earlier in the stream, but like there is, in one of the earlier Q&As, one of the things they said kind of threw a red flag up for me, and it kind of gave me the inkling that they were almost too yes-andy in regards to ideas, right? That there was no kind of the vibes I got was that this is a very friendly environment, and if you had an idea and you're part of the Fun Dog team, there's no bad ideas. I'm not saying this to be true, but that's the vibe I got. And so like if there's no curator for the actual vision of like what the game's supposed to be and what's not supposed to be, like how are you gonna have a sense of direction? And like I feel like that confusion mirrors the community right now, right? There is a great deal of confusion among the community of what this game is supposed to eventually be. No one, yeah, and like no one wants to be the buzzkill in a room full of friends, right? It's also kind of the danger, for example, of being in a professional environment with all of your friends. And I've experienced before too, like for example D&D. I've had to learn the hard way with D&D. I cannot be friendly sometimes to my players, in regards to like, so for example, like sometimes if a friend of mine might want to like have a player who wants to join the game, or has a friend who like, let's say for example I have open slot, I will like, I generally do not ask for references anymore from my current players on if I need a slot filled, do they have someone, because the environment that creates is not exactly a great environment sometimes. I've been burned by friends of friends too many times now where I'm like, hey, maybe I just need to go get like a stranger I vet as opposed to a friend of a friend, because I've had that go bad so many times from personal experience. I've killed a game on the spot before. I will say I was definitely angry and acted out of temper, but I was definitely justified. The way I handled it was poor, I will fully admit that, but where it came from was definitely justified, because essentially I had a friend of a friend join a game that was like approaching a narrative arc for them to go jump onto, and as opposed to like their friend of a friend, like, doing anything related to the arc at all. They just started fucking around, treating it like improv. And that, like, that just fucking threw me for a goddamn loop. I'm like, what the literal fuck, I'm done. Like, if you want to go do improv, go do improv. Yes, D&D does borrow from improv a lot, but it's not improv. But like, that's like my classic example, right, of like, hey, sometimes an environment can be too toxically friendly. And it sounds counterintuitive, but it crops up. It happens, right? It is hard to be the person who says no in an environment of friends or people you know. You don't want to be the buzzkill. What the hell? No, I don't think so. I think everything is thoroughly unpolished, siloed, and yeah. I do not think so. Also, say hello to the small grabber. Why couldn't it just be a normal-sized grabber? Why does it have to be small? Does it... I feel like this is OCD, right? Because they had a cubby here, right? Like, a cubby from here to here, like, what can fit there? Oh, let's put a grabber there. But, like, the grabber doesn't fit. Let's just scale it down. Let the OCD like flow through you and just like make it big, why can't it be the appropriate size? Why does that have to be mini grabber? But no, yeah, I don't think they have. At least not to the point where I would want to say it is, right? Like maybe internally they say water is done. To me on the outside I would say it's not done, but I don't know them, right? Maybe it's not done to them. I will say, I mean, okay. I like the fact that there's alternate pathways on Babel you can use if you bring pneumatic jump. It definitely, like, I do not want to fault it because it's a much more interesting map in regards to, like, I guess, movement patterns than other maps. But, like, it does kind of feel like I play it the same way every single time, right? Like, I go over here, I cross there, I come back, I do a few things over there, I hit E on the thing, and then come down this way because it's the safest way, and then go back around, right? Like, it does... I do not want... Like, they've done a better job on this map providing alternate pathways and making nuanced pathways, too. I fucking love, absolutely love, that this is a thing. Hey, if you bring a pneumatic jump, you can skip a section of the map and use this potentially different section. I love that. But, like... It's just like it's not enough. It's just, it's two pathways as opposed to one. Yeah, having your choices matter and having what you bring matters and having that be important sometimes is very cool. I want the choices that I make of what I bring matter, as opposed to, like, yes, bullets matter and meds matter, right? But like the tools you bring and how you approach the map should matter a lot too. Fucking drones. So many goddamn drones. Wait, is this... Wait, hold on. Are the projectiles despawning after a certain distance? Do we have the sawed-off from CS2? For those who don't know, every single shotgun in CS2 has infinite range, except for the sawed-off, and it makes it a weird gun. Maybe the Mag 7 too. I can't remember. Maybe the Mag 7 also. But most shotguns in CS2 will still like hit you at long range. Granted, they'll do basically no damage at all. But the sawed-off is weird because it will actually despawn the projectiles at a very short distance, which makes it an anomaly.
I think they spotted us. That's it for us.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like, no one uses the sawed-off, right? It's a meme gun. So, like, there are so many guns in CS2, or just Counter-Strike in general, like Go also, that just don't get touched because they're just kind of funny guns for the community to use.
Hard run. But at least we made it.
Like, there's maybe, like, what, like a dozen guns that actually get used in CS2 out of, like, however many there are. And mostly, a lot of them just exist for, like, casual and fun purposes, right? Or because they existed in CS2 or CSGO. And they have skins, so you can't get rid of them. When you attach your guns to a Steam inventory item that actually has real value, you suddenly can't get rid of them anymore. They're kind of sticky. Yeah, we deleted the R8 from the game because no one liked it, but yeah, all those skins you have, the R8 skins, are now gone. The ones that were there, like hundreds of dollars. Yeah, the R8 skins aren't expensive, but like, hey, there's a few of them that do cost at least a bit of money. Let's go over to a weird gun. Oh, they did? That's nice. So they're saying the building shouldn't float. Understood. I do have a level 3. All right, what do you got? I haven't used a pump shot. Actually, I haven't used a TKB in a while. Can I silence you now? Didn't you just like get some parts? All right, Mr. TKB. I know they've added like a few mods to like some of the weirder guns that didn't used to have mods. Okay, I will say too, like, honestly, I like, in regards to customization, I'm kind of okay with like something just like this, right? When you start getting into like when you have magazine capacities that go between 30 and like 100 rounds, it starts getting probably kind of hard to balance these guns, I imagine. Especially for a small indie team. I don't know. I haven't done Stairway yet. It's Magnum meta too, but it also feels like, for example, the cyborgs are balanced around Magnum meta. So like, it feels like the cyborgs are overtuned for anyone who's not using an RPK with the drum mag.
Hard to breathe up here. But the mask helps.
I really shouldn't shoot these guys. It would not go well for me. I think that's definitely a fair approach, Pixel. That's kind of the way I think I would do it too, is I would like sit down and figure out what should be the baseline for what should kill this unit. And then try to go from there and make it all relative, right?
I think they spotted us.
Yeah, this game doesn't really do a good job. I mean, you can RP in this game, but it definitely makes it a lot harder for you. Yeah, the tutorial is rough. The tutorial is real rough. I imagine if you're not like an FPS or third-person gamer and you're trying to play this game, I imagine the fucking the tutorial is very rough for you. Especially if you don't know the cyborgs are infinite. Like sometimes that's always a dangerous thing of like infinite enemies in a tutorial for testing purposes, is because sometimes players don't get the memo. That's a mechanic, or that's a gimmick in like tutorials for games, and so they'll stay there thinking they can actually win. Sorry, friendo. You're gonna get infinite respawns until you leave. Great for farming though, but you have a surplus shotgun and rifle, so good luck. I mean, they did drop a metric on me, or they did use the term data shows people die a lot to me. I'm like, hey, just because you have people dying a lot doesn't mean great things. Just because you're like, I mean, like, I'm sure they probably fucking know this too, but like, a high death rate doesn't necessarily mean it's death for the good reasons of like your game is hardcore. It could just be that your game sucks. And I don't mean that, but like, there's context to just the data, right? If I spawn people in a room and instantly kill them, you know, is my game hardcore or just fucking stupid? Potentially. I mean, I have mentioned to them on onboarding a lot, and they do understand that onboarding is a pain. Like, I think they do fully appreciate that. There's terrain glitches, there's people like, you know, getting pot-shotted. I mean, we got pot-shotted by a mech yesterday, I think, what, 2 days ago? Yesterday? I didn't know, yesterday? Like, pot-shots still happen, too. Fucking painless? There are lots of ways where a player can die fairly unfairly. Like the grabber, for example. And it's a weird thing too, right? Where you've made your game somewhat like a rogue shot. Sorry, not rogue shot, a roguelike. In the sense of when you're starting out and most vulnerable is when you're like more likely to get killed by these endgame creatures, right? Like the grabber. Because of the threshold. I mean, to be fair, that's pretty just peak software though, I will say, Pixel. Like, yes, it'd be nice if they can fix it, but like the struggle of them fixing the potshot issue is pretty peak software development. You've never worked tech before if you haven't fixed a bug that you thought you fixed and then the patch came out and you're like, it's not fucking fixed, is it? It is so peak. The funnest thing is too, is when you actually did fix it, but it didn't make it into the build, but you thought it did, and then you're like, why is this not fixed? And you're like, oh, my code's not in there. It's not, why would they, of course it's not gonna be fucking fixed. Why are they seeing this? I've had that pop up a few times. Or like, rather, Q&A will come back and the Q&A will say like, this is not fixed, but Q&A, you're looking at the wrong version. You need to look at the right version Q&A. I've had so many talks about Q&A of like, look at the right thing, please. I know I say like I love quality, like it's one thing to appreciate quality assurance, but when you work in tech, I can't help but like I definitely at many points in my career have had animosity toward the QA team as like an adversarial force. What are you shooting at on the fucking floor? Where'd it go? What are you doing down there? I'm just curious. Does fire hurt? Okay, fire hurt. Fire hot. Is all fire hot? Okay, fire hot. Fire hot. I'm afraid if I jump, am I gonna mantle this? Okay, thank God. I'm really curious if I shoot it, what happens.
I think they spotted us. That's it for us.
Oh God. It can fire its rockets up while looking down. Alright, I'm gonna, thanks Vinny, I'm gonna leave. I don't feel safe anymore. That's the secret though, is the chopper struggles on every map. The chopper is, the chopper really needs some TLC, man. The chopper needs some love. No, please change. No, please change, Forever Winter. Please fix the helicopters. They've been buggy for so long. Please give the helicopters a little bit of love. They should be terrifying, and they are kind of terrifying, but they're mainly just derpy. Please fix the helicopter. My God, alright. Man, especially until they can fire the rockets up. That was, I did not expect that. That was fucking terrifying. Let's see here. MPL time, MPL time. We'll do MPL, and we'll also do R8, because why not? I mean, I'm guessing something big 3000 just because they took the demo for it, right? Because they felt the demo was not indicative of the game coming, so read into that how you will. Let's do an elephant. Let's do an elephant and spawn at Ruin, so we have to leave through an alternate pathway. Do I have any grenades? Sorry, do I have any fun grenades is rather the better question. I do have some fun grenades left. I think I saw someone in like one of the feedback channels say they want a lever action. Maybe it was just in the game owner chat. I'm just like, please no. Though I would say, okay, I will say this. If it's a scav lever action, like it's not like a fucking Winchester, it's just like a homebrew lever action rifle that's like purely scavified, I would be on board. But if it's like just like a fucking Winchester or like a night, like what's the like all of like the what's it called, the 4570 like lever actions, I'm not on board for that. Oh hey, congratulations everyone, you get to see the Stiltwalker be a fucking derpy. Wait, I can make it fly, can't I? It's so derpy. No, don't you do it, T90. You stay the fuck away. T90, you stay the fuck away from me. We're not doing this today, friend. You're not gonna run me over. Oh, it's getting. Wait, what the hell is going on here? Do you need to censor the video? Am I gonna get demonetized? That's the secret though. It's already not monetized. You can't demonetize what's not monetized. I think it's just random. Certain maps. I've seen it on Elephant mostly. I've seen it on Mesa once. This is usually where it spawns for me. But like I don't know of what criteria spawns this bitch. Okay, so like it definitely feels like its collision box is like in the center of it. So I needed to like stand still and kind of bug out for a second. It should bug out soon, yeah. Fuck it. I needed you to go below, not above. Oh, it's destroying the grenades. It's ruining my fun. I forgot about that. I forgot it basically explodes explosives if you throw anything near it. And I think it's got knocked back into the minefield wall. I swear, you can definitely make that thing fly, but I think it instantly explodes the explosives. Weirdly enough, too, granted this is a video game, so naturally it's understandable if it's different. Don't the trophy systems usually require a certain velocity from projectiles to intercept? Isn't that usually like a requirement for trophies? They don't intercept everything? And naturally, it can probably have like a more fine-tuned trophy system like that, but I'm pretty sure like, I think most modern trophy systems, for those familiar, a trophy systems is a system that intercepts incoming projectiles. Sort of like explosive reactive armor, but much more like precise. Essentially like it will see an incoming RPG and then shoot the incoming RPG in a very simple sense. But I believe so it doesn't overreact to things, it requires a certain velocity on the incoming projectile so it doesn't over trigger. And granted, like once again, this is a video game, so it doesn't have to be perfectly accurate, but it definitely feels like if they wanted to make the Stiltwalker interactable, that would be an interesting way of doing it, where you had to use maybe grenades. You could try IEDs too. The only problem with, or not IEDs, but actually either of these, right, is that are you really gonna see these spawn very often, or like rather spawn enough to the point where you can actually use it? Like, if there's like a 1% chance of seeing a stilt walker, are you gonna bring in an IED every single fucking raid in case you get one? I don't have a lot of water left to actually spawn at this entry point. We'll have to do fucking the cheap pipes. We need to start questing again to actually like get enough water to just play freely again. Maybe dust, that's why we don't see birds around except for the occasional crow who's not near the Stillwalker.
Just one more run. Just one more run.
Have you seen any birds other than ravens? Aren't like the ravens like tech shit too, maybe? Ravens, crows. Which is it, the raven that's really big or is it the crow that's really? I know you can tell which is which by how big they are. One is much smaller than the other. Raven's big, okay, so that's probably crows what we're dealing with, yeah. That blew up immediately.
Eyes on us. Spread out.
Ah! You're defying you're cheating. Hold on. Yeah, I know both are very smart birds. I kind of like, I know that like the way of telling them apart is like one is very much bigger than the other one.
Eyes on us. Spread out.
Run, pilot, run. Imagine being equipped with an APC-9 Pro against fucking cyborgs. Yeah, that's about how it's supposed to go. Hey, call me. How's it going? No, you're all good. I understand. I do overemphasize my words in videos, so like I understand where people are coming from when they say it's AI. They're wrong, but I understand where they're coming from.
Eyes on us. Spread out.
Personally, interestingly enough, like maybe a month, no, it's like me like a month, like 3-4 months ago, right? I was talking to my mom, and she definitely like kind of dropped the hint where it just came up naturally in conversation where like it made it sound like she was not overly punishing, but definitely punishing when me or my sister didn't articulate well enough, which makes a lot of fucking sense. Because if you're unfamiliar, doing overly corrective training when a child is young is generally how they develop impediments or weird speech patterns. Because you kind of put a subconscious trigger in their head where they're not aware of it, but that's just how they function as a person. And I don't know it to be true, but like she definitely dropped the hint where it felt like it might have been that. It's why, for example, if I put on a voice, like weirdly enough, when I did the Lordos video was so much easier for me to do and read out loud. Cause like when I'm doing a video, right, I might have to like stop and re-record something multiple different times. Cause because I might not like how I say it. I might I may miss a word. I might, you know, stutter a bit when reading. So like I'll have to redo a recording. But like the Lordos video, when I was doing a voice or doing a character, it was so much easier for me to do. And like the only thing I could subconsciously think about or like think about in regards to like why that might be the case is because I'm not being myself, I'm being a character. So it's not there, that subconscious tick isn't there. And once again, I don't know it to be true, but like it feels like it might be something like that. Just because of how like much easier it is for me to do a voice and read off a script as opposed to use my own voice and read off a script. It kind of makes me wish like when I was doing videos initially, I adopted more of like a caricature of myself, because it would probably mean it would make videos so much easier for me to do. I wouldn't say voice actor. I mean, I did heavily edit the shit out of that Lordos video. Well, and weirdly enough, if I was doing a character or a voice, it would probably be easier, because like when I do videos, it depends on the length of the video, right? But like scripting is like the easier part. It just takes time of like me having to sit down and do a script, but like recording can take me a long time depending on the video. Because like once again, like I'm not a perfectionist per se, but I do want to make it consistent. But I definitely understand how that can come off as me trying to be overemphasizing or me over-articulating words. Because when I listen to myself, if I don't hear myself perfectly articulate in my own voice, I probably think it's not good enough. Or rather, I judge if people can understand it, and so I go back and re-record it and probably over-articulate. Thus, that's on the private channel. But that's on the P-Hub channel. The erotic Mother Courage fanfiction with voice synthesis. It doesn't actually exist. Please don't go searching for it. You might find bad things. See you, Casper. I guess actually I should just say like it's OF as opposed to P-Hub, right? Because like OF is like the more like lucrative version. Yes, come listen to the Mother Courage NSFW ASMR on OF. If at this point I feel like society is so denigrated that like literally if it like people will pay for fucking anything, and people are willing to do it for anything. Hey, stop that. There are a few mods for the game. They are limited in scope. There is only so much you can really genuinely do with a UE5 game currently. I know a few people are trying to do more, but like, it is an uphill battle, right? So if you go to like the mod nexus for like the main mods you're gonna see for this game are usually just asset changes. So they'll just replace an asset with another asset. So like for example, one of the first ones was replacing Scav Girl with the Mother Courage skin, or for example, it was replacing the backpack skin with a non-rendered skin, so you can see your full character. So that's primarily what mods are right now. I know Divi put out a companion mod, but I don't know how it... I never looked into it, so I don't know exactly what it does. I'm not sure if it's like a companion overhaul or what it does, but yeah. There's a few out here and there, but it is definitely an uphill battle. Yeah, I generally do not bother with mods unless I'm very far into a game. And even then, I wouldn't probably mod this game, to be honest, because like all the mods just do asset flip shit. And personally, if there were like to the point where we had mod tools for this game, I would probably just mod the game myself at that point. But like I said, it's an issue with UE5 in the sense of, to my knowledge, for UE5 game like modding support, the developers kind of have to put it into the game. It's not really going to come natively to the game itself. So like, if the developers want to put mod support in the game, they kind of have to do it themselves, which means taking time for developing the game to put in mod support.
I think they spotted us.
Yeah, those small games like that are always nice because like they are just there. For example, Hades was nice too, right? Because I know that Hades put all their files out there, like they're not compiled, right? It's just a bunch of Lua files. Basically, you can go in and freely edit if you want to. All right, we have one half of the equation. Do we have the other half? God, I don't have any drills to do anything with, but I'm kind of curious if they have someone to fight. Yeah, and so like outside of them putting in mod support, like there is no shot they're gonna give us their project files, right? That would be insane. But like if they wanted to do mod support, that's basically what they would kind of have to do if they didn't want to do like their own development work on mod support, is give us the source files, which no one should expect them to, right? Like that's, I'm not saying you should expect that from them. No company does that.
I hope you bastards at home appreciate
It's still early access. It'll be early access for a bit, for sure. Like, we're still, like, very early in early access. We got quite a ways to go, I imagine. All right. That's it for everyone. Probably it for this week, too. I'll be busy tomorrow doing homework and shit. I'll probably be back Thursday next week. If we have a patch, Monday, Wednesday is kind of sketch. If it's Tuesday, I can probably stream it. I'll try to, if it's Monday, Wednesday, I'll try to find a stream it too. I'll find a way, but it won't be during normal hours, I imagine. For you EU folk, you'll probably be in the evening. Other than that, take it easy, guys. I'll see you guys next week. If not, I'll see you again. Have a good week, and I will catch you all later. Bye, all.